Hey YouTube, Gordon Miller here. All right, so the question I got on Quora the other day was, why was I detained in Saudi Arabia at gunpoint for an hour? So it's a great story, actually. So I was traveling with a group of businessmen from the United States, and there were 30 of us. It was part of a economic development contingent from Virginia. So the state of Virginia was working with the folks in Saudi Arabia to set these meetings up. And it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, we were in UAE. We went to Abu Dhabi first, and I went from Abu Dhabi to Dubai to meet with some folks that I knew there. And that was actually a lot of fun. We were there for 3 or 4 days in Abu Dhabi and then in Dubai. And next time I go to Dubai, I'll get a chance to go to see Ali Al-Shamsi. So I look forward to that. That'll be great. But we left Abu Dhabi to go to Dammam, which was where most of the industry is. And then we were going to do another day or two in Riyadh, which is in the middle of nowhere, and it's where the seat of government is for Saudi Arabia. So we were flying into Dammam. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I was the last off the plane because I had not filled out my declaration forms and stuff like that. And the paperwork is insane. I mean, the United States at least makes it fairly easy, and the whole process is automated and computerized and stuff like that. So the funny thing is that the rest of my group made it through, and then I came up to, it's like a tall desk, and it's all separated out. We're all standing in line, and they motioned for me to come up, and I handed my passport, and he opens it, looks at it, and he types me into the computer, and he's typing, and all of a sudden he goes, looks at the computer screen, and he goes, motioning to one of the other guys with machine guns. The guy with the machine gun comes over, and there's a bunch of people in line making noise now. They're speaking in Hindi or something like that. They're a group of people from India, and so the guard tells them to shut up, and or yells at them in Arabic, and they quiet down, and it's amazing what guys with automatic weapons can do to quiet a crowd. But the guy with the machine gun goes, come with me. And I'm like, well, is there a problem? And he's like, you come with me. And I'm like, oh, geez. All right, sounds good. So, and just to preface this, they were very nice to me the whole time. So I have no, I have no complaints. Let's just say that I will never again complain when TSA has me stop for extra searches. I got news for you. So they didn't, I didn't have to take my clothes off and do a body search or anything else like that. But they were interrogating me to see, why I'm there, who am I meeting with, and things like that. I think part of the problem was they didn't say. They went through the whole list of questions like, where are you staying? How long will you be here? When are you leaving? Where are you going next? Going through the whole litany of questions. And I was like, well, I'm staying in Dammam at the Marriott. I'm flying to Riyadh tomorrow. We'll be in Riyadh for 48 hours, staying at the Marriott there. And then we're going to Doha in Qatar. And so they're like, okay. So what I think happened was I was traveling, they tell you on your passport, on your visa application, to put Muslim or non-Muslim. They said don't put Christian or Catholic or anything else like that. That's just a pain in the ass. So but I because my companies do high-level government contracts, I have had, a security clearance for a long time. My guess is I'm probably the only person in the group with a high-level security clearance. And so when you have a clearance as high as mine is, I'm sure that's something that they want to know why I'm there. And that's fine. So the other thing is that I had been, it's a 14-hour flight from the U.S. I flew from Dulles to Abu Dhabi, and I took a copy of the Quran with me. I was reading it on the flight, and I wanted to understand more about Islam and understand, and I was actually kind of surprised that the Quran actually has a whole chapter devoted to the Virgin Mary, identifies, Christ not as a, he as a historical figure and as a great prophet, but not as God. But Mary, though, yep, they recognize Mary as the Virgin Mary and holy and everything else. So the amount of respect for Mary was really a surprise. So anyway, I was, the funny thing is that they asked me about, they said, you're traveling with a copy of the Quran. And I go, yes, yeah. I told him, yeah, I'm interested in understanding more about Islam. And he's like, what do you plan on doing with it? And I go, what do I plan on doing with it? I plan on reading it. And I guess they thought that I was going to make some kind of statement and destroy it, or things like that. So it wasn't about that. So I kind of understood that, and they looked at me like they didn't really believe me. And so I said, well, the thing that I love. At the time, my mind is like going 1,000 miles an hour, and so I said, one of the things that I really have enjoyed about it is this, and I memorized a section that I had just read just before I got off the plane. I was recalling what it was, and of course, if you're in the religion of Islam, if you're Islamic, you are required to memorize and to recite certain verses, actually the whole thing. And so I remembered the last thing that I had read, and I remembered 3 or 4 lines of it, and it was relevant to the conversation that I just said, about Mary and stuff like that. So I gave them that whole spiel, and so they were like, okay. And they let me go. So I was like, oh, thank God. So probably, my guess is that it has something to do with my security clearance. Chances are it has something to do with my known associates too. I have some fairly infamous friends who are intelligence operatives and things like that. So, I think at least a couple of them, I believe, are actually banned from Saudi Arabia. So probably wondering why I'm there. So it was so funny too, though. So they finally let me through, and I make it out to the bus where everybody's been waiting for about an hour, and I tell them the story on the way to the hotel. And I'm the last one on the bus. I'm the last one off the bus. Everybody else is, getting off ahead of me when we get to the hotel. And the funny thing is that everybody else is checked in. And there are 3 checkout lines they've got set up. So there's 3 different rows, and I'm in one of them. So there's 2 other people checking out at the same time, and I'm the last one to step up. And I hand them my passport, and they say, "Good evening, Mr. Miller." I'm like, okay, well, they already know who I am. That's not a good sign. The Marriott there had barricades around it and armed sentries at the main gate and everything. Discipline's not a problem. I don't know why, all the security, but, it was interesting to say the least. But, the fact is that, I went to go check in. They already knew who I was. And so they said, well, Mr. Miller, we have taken the liberty of upgrading you to our presidential suite. Like, well, thanks. I appreciate it. We're getting up at like 6 a.m. And making our way to our meetings. So I'm sorry I won't be able to take advantage of it longer. By this time, after I got released, it was like 10 o'clock at night. So, I'm going to bed. But they give me this room, and the thing is amazing. I mean, it's just absolutely freaking amazing. And the funny thing about it was that when I went to connect, I was going to connect to get my email, and they had free Wi-Fi, and it failed originally. It failed the connection, and then it finally connected afterwards. So the funny thing is that I know they were tracing my internet activity. So once I realized that it blipped out and then blipped back on, I was like, nah, it's okay. I'll check my email when I get to Doha. But the funny thing is that the room is wired for video and audio. So anything I say, anything I do, everything's being monitored, I'm sure. So I take a shower and go to bed and get up the next morning and pack. It was 72 hours, 24 hours in Dammam and 48 hours in Riyadh. And I was grateful when I got to Doha, that's for sure. I mean, the people in Saudi Arabia are very hospitable. I have nothing against the folks in Saudi Arabia at all. They treated us with nothing but kindness. And our meeting, I met with the Minister of Defense when we got to Riyadh, and I'm sure part of my screening, because I have a security clearance, was because we were going to be meeting with literally the Minister of Defense and the Deputy Minister, and one of the colonels that run the purchasing and acquisition program. So I think that part of the issue is probably because of who we were meeting with and everything else. But that was my experience in Saudi Arabia. Having two guys with machine guns escort me into the briefing room to ask me questions and interrogate me as to why I'm there. So I don't have any rights there as a foreigner, and there's no due process, so they can do whatever they want to with me there. So I was very amenable to whatever they had in mind. So, but that's my story. That's what happened to me during my 72 hours in Saudi Arabia. Hopefully my next trip will be better. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.